My name is Quentin, Compton-Bishop, and I'm the chairman of the Levantine Heritage Foundation. Thank you very much for coming to Athens, beautiful weather that you brought with you. This is our third international conference. We hold them every 2 years, and I hope you'll have an interesting 2 days. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background to the Levantine Heritage Foundation. How did it all begin? Why are we here? And it started, well, let me tell you what we're about. We're really focused on sort of three, if you pick out 3 words, it's education, research, and preservation. And how can we identify and preserve the heritage of those communities in the Levant area during the Ottoman era? How can we help promote the research into that? And then what can we learn? How can we actually promote those results and outputs and draw meaning from them? So how did it all begin? So some of you will know Craig Enser behind the camera there. So it all started with Craig, and it started really with families of Levantine origin researching their past. And Craig was collecting testimonials from these families on the website, and indeed that's how I found the Levantine community and Levantine Heritage, the Levantine Heritage website. And in 2010, there was a conference organised, a symposium organised in Izmir. Now this was before the Levantine Heritage Foundation, the LHF, had formed, but it brought together for the first time descendants of Levantine families, researchers from all over the world. I mean, we had people from Australia, Canada. It was really a very diverse group. And what was interesting was actually the symbiosis that resulted from that, where you had families that had records, where you had researchers seeking original research. And a group of us thought, well, it would be great if we could actually continue the momentum behind this, actually how to build this network, provide access to original records from families, support researchers who could then take it and actually give much broader context to some of the independent research that anti-researchers were doing. And so that's how it started, and there were also small meetings in London, so the London group, or the UK group, gathers 2 or 3 times a year to have talks and to network. And in the end we thought, well, actually we need to have an international conference that really brings the researchers together and enable them to meet a lot more of the families and the families to meet them. And so the first conference was held in Istanbul in 2014, and it was entitled Commerce and Diplomacy, very much the theme of Old Smyrna and Izmir today. It was supported, and just to flip back a bit, that 2010 symposium in Izmir, one of the other interesting things for me was that it was supported by the Izmir Chamber of Commerce. So there's actually a modern interest in actually the outputs of what we were discussing. So the first international conference in Istanbul was a success. We thought, well, let's try it again in London. Let's focus on these sort of wider networks that existed in Ottoman times, where the Levantines and the communities behind them were really the platform for them. So we looked at shipping and trade, and now, the third conference here in Athens, we're going back to some of those original thoughts. So identities and heritage. Who were the Levantines? What were the communities? What do they think of themselves then? How do their descendants think of themselves now? So, give you, let's say, a personal context for Identities and Heritage. So I'm half Levantine. When I was a kid, people say, where are you from? I said, well, I'm a quarter English, a quarter Scottish, a quarter Polish, a quarter French, an eighth Italian, and there are a few other bits in between. Okay, the maths didn't add up. Today I'm a bit wiser, and people say, where are you from? I say, I'm from Coventry. I've lived there 5 years. It's just easier. But the point is that, we're mixed up. We're all mixed up. The Levantines are mixed up. And that is both interesting and complex. And I think that's an opportunity today to sort of explore some of those things. What did it mean in the past? Well, the communities were all mixed up. And that was some of its richness, the networks that resulted. So there's a sense it's about origins, beyond nationality. Where did you come from? Where are your roots? But also events. The Ottoman Empire, the communities within it were affected by big events. And so people moved. There was a diaspora. There were the great exchanges of population, the tragic exchanges of population. We saw yesterday those few of us that went on tours to the Centre of Asian Minor Studies, to Estia near Shmieni, the amount of material, the challenges that those people faced. And that's why when we have conferences we get people coming from all over the world, because they're scattered there. I myself also was partly raised in Beirut. So, and in my own family, so the heritage of that. So when my mother came to the UK in 1976, after the Civil War, with a few ornaments, and the carpet that her parents brought from Izmir in 1914, that was our heritage. And people asking, why have you got a funny accent? That sort of very Levantine sort of English. And she was an English teacher. So actually what we bring with us is very important as heritage. What remains is very important, how we connect to it. What can we learn from it? And I think that's what this conference is all about. Last couple of personal connections. It's always interesting. We think about these past networks, the serendipity of occasions like this, when some of us meet up with cousins perhaps we never knew we had. And so my connections to Athens, my connections even to this institution, to this school. So one of my great-grandfathers was a civil engineer. He worked as a consultant engineer for Heinrich Schliemann. And the Schliemann correspondence is in the archives here in the Gennadius Library. So there, when I came last year to meet with the team here, I had the great opportunity to look at the correspondence between Schliemann and my great-grandfather, discussing how to do the engineering of the excavations of Troy. And last year I have another great-grandfather who's buried in Yeshimon. So we find new connections all the time, and that's the richness for me, and I hope it's the richness for the whole sort of community that's interested in Levantine matters. So I have to thank a huge number of people who have enabled us to put this conference on. So we have, we're very reliant on donors, sponsors, we have a small membership, but actually it's these people here who have helped Consolidated International Agencies, Alunda Hotels and Resorts, the Berkshire family, who kindly sponsored the drinks at Estia Shmieni last night, Mark and Jane Ransom Family Trust. Unfortunately, the Ransoms can't be here on this occasion, but they've been great supporters. The Levantine Hellenic Union, who actually have very kindly brought some mastika, and hope we will have an opportunity during the 2 days to sample something that's very characteristic of that. And also we have a number of donors, quite significant ones, who wish to remain anonymous. I'd also like to thank the hosts of the tours, so the Centre for Asian Minor Studies, where we had a really interesting talk, and actually they have got some fantastic records that have been collected over the years, both in terms of the musicology and the testimonials of some of those Greeks who came from Turkey after 1923. And then we've got, so Estini Ashmini, so we want to thank them. The National Historical Museum, so on Sunday there's a tour there. If anyone wishes to join that, please let the front desk know, and we're going to be shown around that museum. And then we have a number of sponsors from the past, but actually what they have contributed still benefits us today. I also really want to thank the speakers and the keynotes in particular. Everyone that has come great distances, spent a lot of time in assembling their presentations, the panel chairs, thank you very much. And also the organisers, Achilles, Jessica Constantino, who have put the programme together. We have Joanna Kukuni, who has had the unenviable task of trying to put it all together and keep us on the straight and narrow. Calliope Amigdalou, who unfortunately can't be here, so she's sort of imminently expecting her first child, but has nevertheless, from her hospital bed, has actually been doing last minute help with the programme. Then Dimitris Kramousis, who actually was our host yesterday, thank you, and Noel Berkshire, again, who organised our visit to Estini Ashmini, Denis Papadopoulos, who showed us round, and then on Sunday, Dr. Philip Mazalatis Enyan, who will take us around the National History Museum. Thank you all very much. And lastly, I do want to thank the American School of Classical Studies. Thank you very much for the support of your team. This is a fantastic place to hold a conference, and really everything has gone very smoothly. So please, will you join me in thanking all these people. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome the director of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens, Professor Jenifer Nars, who would like to give her own personal welcome to you.
Good morning, Kalimata, and welcome to American School of Classical Studies. We are delighted to be hosting this extraordinary conference. I have looked through the program and I am amazed at the range and expertise of all of you, and I wish I could say for the whole thing. I won't be able to do that. It's interesting that your mission is very similar to ours: education, research, and preservation, including art and culture. And we do this not only in spite of our name, from antiquity to the present. Someone once said there are 3 lies in the title of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens. One is that we are not just at Athens because we have a major excavation and research operation in ancient Corinth. We are not a school. We do not grant degrees. We are a research center. And we are not just classical studies, because our mission really is to study Greece from the Paleolithic up to the present. We are a cosmopolitan and multinational and interdisciplinary organization, just like you are. But I am a classical archaeologist, and from that vantage point, I was thinking about your area of study, and it reminded me of work that I've done in Sicily and southern Italy, where the movement went the other way, not Latin or Europeans to the Levant, but Phoenicians from the Levant and Greeks migrating to the shores of the very prosperous area of Sicily and southern Italy way back in the 8th century BC. And as archaeologists of this period, we study the very same issues that you seem to be looking at: identity, acculturation, trade, religion. But we don't have the advantage that you do of all the texts and records and archives. We have to recreate this synthesis of foreign peoples coming in and working with the local population through artifacts and through archaeology. So it's a bit more of a challenge, and I wish we had as many documents as you have. So I can certainly understand what you're doing and how important it is for the history of Europe and particularly the Mediterranean. And I wish you well in this conference, and I hope it has good results, and I'm sure will, and very stimulating exchanges and conversations. I just want to also add that in terms of our interest in the preservation of the art and culture of Greece of all periods, we actually have next door in the Gennadius Library a period room from northern Greece, from Macedonia, which was from a house of the Ottoman period. And if any of you are interested in seeing that, we can arrange for you to go and visit. We have just added, as a sort of pendant to this auditorium, a new exhibition space. There's no exhibition there currently, but we do have this wonderful period room filled with Iznik pottery and other pieces, icons that you might want to see. So we'd be happy to show you that. At this point, I'd like to, the best way to introduce you to the school is to show you a 1 minute or 2 minute commercial video that we recently put together to tell people about the many diverse activities that take place here. Somebody once asked me, what is the American School? I said, it's really like an octopus. We have 8 programs, 2 major excavations, Corinth and Niagara. We have 2 major libraries. There's one that we're adjacent here, the Gennadius Library for Post-Classical Greece, and one across the street, one of the best libraries, certainly in Europe, for classical studies and archaeology. We have a major publication program coming out of our office in Princeton, New Jersey, in the United States. We have an archive, a very deep archive, and you mentioned already that you visited and seen some of the letters of Heinrich Schliemann, but we also have materials donated to us by eminent authors and scholars, such as the Nobel laureate poets of Greece, Elitis, just to name one of them. I don't know if I've gotten to it yet. Oh yes, we have a really major scientific laboratory, which was built and inaugurated a couple years ago in a new facility on the far end of the campus. So we try to help reconstruct the past in various ways, and science is one of the newest and most important areas in which we now gain information about the past, and things like DNA and analysis, dating, and very sophisticated equipment down there to help us learn more about not only where people live, but what they ate in antiquity and things like that. So let me just show you this video, and I'll introduce you to these variety of activities that we carry on here. And one of them is sponsoring, helping to house and host conferences. So we hope that maybe in 2, 4, or 6 years you might come back to the American School. And so thank you all for being here. And now we'll quickly show this little video.
If you're interested in mankind, if you're interested in society and how it should function, then you would do well to study the past.
human spirit bubbles up and goes.
Whether we're talking about democracy, art, philosophy, it doesn't really matter what the subject is. It begins in Greece.
We are the premier overseas research center studying Hellenism from prehistoric times to the present day.
We're a consortium of almost 200 leading academic institutions in the United States.
There's hardly a part of Greece that some American school project is not operated in.
Through advances in science, the school has suddenly been transformed.
We can now tell not only what a person had in his last meal, but where he lived.
All of that information can really be disseminated to new audiences.
Through exhibitions, scholarly presentations,
an extended program of outreach to the world community at large.
We bring Greece's past to life to really help shape the world's tomorrow.
This is what we've been doing for almost 140 years. This is who we are.
Thank you very much, and my best wishes for a wonderful conference.
Thank you very much, Jenifer, and thank you to all the organizers who've made this possible.